Hello, second grade, and welcome to Unit 5, Week 3. We're going to begin with our vocabulary. Our first word is the word agree. If people agree about something, they think the same thing about it. So if you agree with something, that means you're choosing the same thing that another person is choosing. So you may agree on which game to play, or you may agree on what your favorite food is. Our second word is the word interest. If you have an interest in something, you like it and you want to learn more about it. So this is where the word interesting comes from. So if you have an interest in something, you're finding that thing interesting. You're finding it to be something that you want to know more about, maybe something you want to try out. You could have an interest in learning how to speak a different language, or maybe an interest in learning how to bake your best friend's really tasty cookie recipe. Next, we have the word perform. When you perform in a play or a movie, you're acting in it. So performers are actors. So when you perform in something, you're playing a role or you're acting in it. Next, we have the word succeed. If you succeed in doing something, you did it the way that you wanted to. That means you were able to be successful, right? That's where the word successful comes from also. Or you were able to do the thing the way that you wanted to do it. And to get the results that you were looking for. So you can succeed in completing an assignment. So if you're working on a project, for example, and you finished it on time and you got a good grade, you succeeded. Or if you were working on a scavenger hunt with your friends and you found the object that was hidden, you succeeded in finding that object. Next, we have the word study. So when you study something, you're learning about it, you're practicing it, you're reading about it so that you can know more about that thing. So you might study about World War II. You might want to study about a famous person or a famous influential individual in history. A lot of you guys have been working on your biography projects. You had to study that person or the life of that person so you can understand why they were important and what kind of impact they made in the world. Next, we have the word challenging. If something is challenging, it's difficult or it's hard to do. And it takes more effort, it takes more work to do than something that is easy. So something that is challenging is the opposite of something that is easy for you. You may be working on a challenging math problem, or you may be reading a challenging book that has new words or bigger words than what you're used to. Next, we have the word heroes. Heroes are people who have done brave things. So while you guys are working through your biography projects, you're learning about different heroes from our history. They did important, influential things that changed the world that we live in today. And last, we have the word discover. If you discover something, you find it or you find out about it. So if you're discovering something, it's usually you're seeing it for the first time, right? So if you're digging in your backyard and you discover something that was buried there, maybe like a little toy, or some people will make like a little time capsule thing where they'll put a bunch of stuff from when they were little and they'll bury it over there, and they may forget that it's there, and someone else may dig it up and discover all of these little treasures that they found buried in that spot. Our spelling words for this week are going to focus on variant vowels. So when we're talking about variant vowels, we're talking about different ways to make the same sound, but using variant or different letters. So variant comes from the word vary, V-A-R-Y, which means different ways or different things. So we're going to figure out how to make the same vowel sound using different vowel letters. Now we have two sounds that we're going to be focusing on. We're going to be focusing on the oo sound, like the word moon, and we're going to be focusing on the sound, like in the word look. Now I listed for you here the different ways that we can make it. So you can make oo with oo, a u consonant letter and then an e, a u by itself, ui, or ue. Now the sound in look you can also make with an OO. You can make it with an OU or also the letter U by itself. So let's read through our words and listen carefully to the sound that you're hearing from those vowel combinations. We have room, flew, June, new, glue, fruit, crook, could, full, push, point, coin, along, ever, and strong. So you can see in your words, you're hearing these different sounds, and they're spelled in a variety of different ways. One thing I do want you to pay attention to with your spelling words is the word June is a proper noun. That means it must be spelled with a capital letter when you go to spell it on your spelling test or in your 3 times each, because it is the name of a month. So that makes it a proper noun. Next, we're going to talk about our language arts and our grammar for this week. So we're going to be reviewing contractions that have the word not with them. Now, remember, a contraction is when you take 2 words and you put them together to make one smaller word, just to make it easier to read. Now, usually what happens when we put those 2 words together, letters from the second word are taken out and we put an apostrophe in their place. So it makes it easier to write because there's fewer letters to write and easier to read. So when we're adding not to a word, we'll have our word and the word not. In the word not, we take out the O and we replace that with an apostrophe. So you're going to have your first word that will pretty much stay the same almost every time. And then you're going to have N apostrophe T added to the end of it. So instead of saying do not, you would say don't. So DO for the word do is still there, same as it was in the beginning. And then for not, we substituted the O for an apostrophe and we put N apostrophe T. Same thing for the word did not becomes didn't. Would not becomes wouldn't. Should not becomes shouldn't. And you're seeing that first word is staying exactly the way it is originally. So the spelling on the first word isn't changing until you get to these 2 exceptions. So cannot becomes can't. Now, since can ends with an N and not begins with an N, we also dropped one of those N's. So can't is spelled C-A-N apostrophe T. And will not, we write or we read it and spell it as won't, W-O-N apostrophe T. We don't say willn't. This is another. So all of these words, usually your first word stays exactly the same as it is, and then you add your N apostrophe T on the end of it, except for these 2 words over here. Next, we have our section about contractions and possessive pronouns. Now, we've talked about possessive pronouns. Remember, possessive pronouns are pronouns that show ownership. They show that something belongs to you or to a person. So I can say I'm, your, and can't. These are all contractions, right? Because they're words that we put together out of 2 other words. And the way you can tell that it's a contraction, your biggest clue is the apostrophe. If it has an apostrophe, it is a contraction because possessive pronouns do not have any apostrophes in them. So if I say I'm going to the basketball game, I'm is a contraction because I apostrophe M takes the place of the letter A. So I am. Mom said, you are going to help me. Mom said, you are going to help me. That's a contraction for you are. They can't go to the park today. They cannot go to the park today. Now, possessive pronouns, possessive nouns show ownership, and the nouns do have the apostrophe S at the end of them. But for possessive pronouns, they do not have an apostrophe S. So we're going to go into these in the bottom. So we know that a noun is a person, place, or thing, and a pronoun takes the place of one or more nouns. So we're going to focus specifically on possessive pronouns. Now, possessive pronouns show ownership, right? So they are the words his, her, my, your, its, our, or their. They don't have an apostrophe or an S at the end, an apostrophe plus S at the end of it. These are words that don't have any apostrophes at all. That's how you know that these are possessive pronouns. They are not contractions. So I can say this is his apple. I know that I'm talking about the apple that belongs to him. Where is her bag? I'm talking about the bag that belongs to her. Can you help me find my book? I'm talking about the book that belongs to me. Please help the cat find its toy. Please take your pencil. This is our puppy, or we are going to their house today. So my possessive pronouns are in bold. They're written darker than the other words. And my possessive pronouns come right before the noun that they're talking about. So if you look at each one of these, we have the possessive pronoun, and then we have the thing that's being owned, right? The noun that comes after it. So we're talking about the apple that belongs to him, the bag that belongs to her, the book that belongs to me, the toy that belongs to it. And here we know it is the cat. The pencil that belongs to you, the puppy that belongs to us, or the house that belongs to them. So possessive pronouns always come right before the noun that they are talking about. Now, we also are going to cover briefly common and proper nouns. We've talked about these before, but we're going to do a quick review. So a common noun is any person, place, or thing. It's not a specific one. If I say cat, dog, house, all of these can be any cat or any dog or any house. But a proper noun names the title of a specific person, place, or thing, or organization here. So proper nouns always begin with a capital letter because they name something specific. Now, if I'm talking about the titles of something like books, all the important words are capitalized because it's part of the title. If I'm talking about the name of a language or the name of a country or the name of a place or the name of something important that happened in history, I'm going to capitalize these because it's talking about something specific. So if I say Monday, I know that I'm specifically talking about the first day of the week. If I'm talking about March, I know I'm specifically talking about the third month of the year. It has a name, so I'm using the name for it, the proper name. If we talk about Martin Luther King Jr. Day, or the book that's titled The Mouse and the Motorcycle, or languages like English or Spanish or Arabic or French or any other language. If we say that someone is European or African or Hispanic or Asian or Arab. If we're talking about the Civil War, for example, or we're talking about the gold rush, those are things that are capitalized. If we're talking about the names of things like different products, like maybe your favorite cereal is Cinnamon Toast Crunch, you're going to capitalize the first letter in each one of those words. Maybe your favorite lollipops or Dum-Dums. If we're talking about geographical names, so places in the world like Lake Tahoe, that's capitalized. Grand Canyon, Niagara Falls. These are names of specific things, so we always capitalize them. And when you write your name on a piece of paper, your name needs to be capitalized too, because it's a name or a word that describes you specifically. So let's get into our reading for this week. We're going to be reading a biography over here, and this is titled Brave Bessie.
Genre: biography. Essential question: what do heroes do? Read about the brave woman who became the first African-American female pilot. Brave Bessie. Written and illustrated by Eric Velasquez. Twice a year, a library wagon would stop in front of Bessie Coleman's little house in Texas. Bessie's mom would rent books for her 12 children to read. Bessie loved to read about Booker T. Washington and Harriet Tubman. They were her heroes. Bessie daydreamed of being someone special like them. Bessie knew school was important. She walked 4 miles each day to get to school, and 4 miles home. She practiced reading to her little brothers and sisters. She practiced her numbers by checking the money her family got for picking cotton. Bessie scrimped and saved enough so she could go to college. She went to college at 18, but left after only a few months. She could not afford to stay in school. But Bessie was not ready to give up on her dreams. She decided to move to Chicago. Her brothers Walter and John lived there. It was a big and exciting city where people's dreams came true. Stop and check. Summarize. Summarize what Bessie did to prepare for college. Bessie soon got a job in a barber shop. Bessie enjoyed listening to John tell stories about French lady pilots in World War I. Bessie had never heard of a lady pilot. The more Bessie thought, the more she liked the idea. Bessie knew she could learn to fly too. Bessie quickly discovered how hard it would be to become a pilot. In the 1920s, there were rules about who could learn to fly. Most people wouldn't teach someone with Bessie's skin color how to fly. Bessie did not agree with the rules, but she could not find anyone to teach her to fly. One day, Bessie met a very important man who worked at a newspaper. She asked him if he knew anyone that could teach her how to fly a plane. He told Bessie to go to France. That is where she had first heard of lady pilots. He told her it would be a lot of work, but Bessie was determined to succeed. She took classes and learned to speak French. She saved her money and was finally able to buy a ticket to France. Bessie sailed to France on a steamship. She had never been on a ship before. It was big and noisy. The ocean was windy and rough. Bessie was a little scared being on a big ship all by herself. She reminded herself that she was on her way to being somebody special. The trip took 9 long days to sail across the Atlantic Ocean. Bessie stared out at the water, waiting to see land. Finally, Bessie reached France. Soon she found a school that would teach her how to fly a plane. After years of hard work, Bessie was ready for her first flying lesson. First, Bessie had to study how to inspect a plane. This plane had wings made of wood and cloth. Bessie had to check the cloth wings for any tears. She also had to check the propeller. After a few lessons, Bessie climbed into the back of the plane, and her teacher climbed into the front. The propeller whirled and the engine chugged. After a running start, the plane took off. Bessie gripped the controls as she took to the air. Her cheeks were stinging from the cold wind, but Bessie was grinning. Bessie had to walk miles and miles to the flying school each day, just like she walked to school as a child. Bessie practiced how to take off and how to land. She learned all the words for planes and flying in English and in French. Finally, Bessie became the first African-American woman to earn a pilot's license. People could call her an aviatrix, the name for a lady pilot. That meant she was truly someone special. Stop and check. Summarize. Bessie worked for years to earn her pilot's license. Summarize what she did to earn it. Bessie returned to America. She was surprised to see reporters waiting to ask her questions. Many people were interested in Bessie. They wanted to see her fly her planes. Bessie wanted to help other African Americans. She wanted children to know they could make their dreams come true. She decided to earn money for her own flying school by performing stunt flying shows. One sunny day, over 1,000 people paid to see Bessie perform in New York. The crowd cheered as Bessie climbed into the cockpit. She was wearing a leather coat, a helmet, goggles, and a confident smile. Brave Bessie. 1892. Bessie was born on January 26th in Atlanta, Texas. 1910. Bessie enrolls in college. 1915. Bessie moves to Chicago, Illinois. 1920. Bessie sails to France in the SS Imperator. 1921. On June 15th, Bessie obtains her pilot's license in France. 1922. Bessie performs her first air show in New York. 1925. Bessie earns the name Brave Bessie. 1926. Bessie Coleman dies in Jacksonville, Florida. 1929. The Bessie Coleman Aero Club opens. The plane slowly rolled down the field and took off. Bessie performed challenging flying stunts, like figure eights and tailspins. The crowd went wild. Bessie performed her stunts in Texas, Tennessee, and Illinois. She flew over fields like the one she picked cotton in as a child. Crowds of people were below her, waving and cheering. She had earned the title Brave Bessie. Years later, her dream of opening a school finally came true. The Bessie Coleman Aero Club taught African American people how to fly. Thanks to Bessie, their dreams were taking flight too. Genre: Legend. Compare texts. Read about a real girl who saved the lives of hundreds of people. The Legend of Kate Shelley. One night many years ago, Kate Shelley woke up during a strong storm. She heard a familiar sound. It was the whistle of the number 12 train. Kate knew the 4 people on board were checking the bridge to see if it was safe for the midnight train to cross. Kate heard the whistle again. Then she heard a crash and the hiss of steam. Kate ran to the bridge to discover it had broken. The number 12 had crashed into the river far below. Kate knew she had to find a way to stop the midnight train because the engineer would not know the bridge was out. The timeline tells important events in Kate's life. 1865. Kate is born in Ireland. 1866. Kate's family moves to America. 1881. On July 6th, Kate saves the train. 1900. The railroad names a bridge after Kate. 1903. Kate becomes station agent near the bridge. 1912. On January 21st, Kate dies. Kate Shelley. She had to get across the river somehow to warn the train. On hands and knees, Kate crawled across what was left of the bridge. Wind blew fiercely and rain pelted her body. She could see the men from the number 12 down below. Kate bravely kept crawling. Finally, Kate reached the other side of the river. She ran as fast as she could to the station. Kate told the station agent what happened. They ran out to the railroad tracks and shone a red light toward the midnight train. It stopped just in time. Kate and the station agent were heroes because their bravery saved lives. Make connections. What did hero Kate Shelley do? How did all the heroes you have read about this week help their communities?
All right, let's move into our reading and writing workshop book. We're going to be reading another biography about an important figure named Cesar Chavez.
Genre: Biography. Cesar Chavez. Essential question: what do heroes do? Read about a man who took action to improve the lives of others. Who are your heroes? For many farm workers, Cesar Chavez is a hero. He is the brave man who spent his life helping them. Childhood. Cesar Chavez was born in Arizona. His parents taught him about learning, hard work, and respect. Cesar worked on the family farm as a young boy. He helped care for the farm animals. His mother and grandmother taught Cesar about caring. Many people came to their door asking for food, and his kind family always shared. Cesar had a strong interest in education. This desire to learn was sometimes hard on him. Spanish was his first language, but he needed to learn and study English. At school, he was punished for speaking Spanish. His mother taught Cesar to find peaceful ways to solve problems. These lessons helped him succeed later in life. He would win struggles without fighting. Hard times. When Cesar was 10, it did not rain for a long time. This drought caused the plants on the farm to die. Without crops to sell, Cesar's family couldn't afford to keep the farm. Then Cesar's family moved to California where there was no drought. His family traveled from farm to farm and worked the crops. Cesar and his family would quickly discover that migrant farm workers had difficult lives. Their challenging jobs forced them to work long hours for little money. The workers bent over all day tending the crops. The work they had to perform made their backs hurt and their fingers bleed. If workers complained, farm owners fired them. Timeline of Cesar Chavez's life. 1927. Cesar is born on March 21st. 1937. Chavez family moves to California. 1942. Cesar finishes 8th grade, begins full-time farm work. 1962. Started National Farm Workers Association. 1965. He convinces the workers to have a strike. 1991. Cesar gives speeches about treating workers fairly. 1993. Cesar helped farm workers until he dies on April 23rd. 1994. He wins the U.S. Medal of Freedom. Changing lives. Cesar knew the migrant workers were not treated fairly, so he decided to take action. He told the migrant workers he had a plan. It was time for grapes to be harvested or picked. Cesar told the workers to stop working. This was called a strike. The grapes began to rot. With no grapes to sell, the landowners lost money. Finally, the owners talked to Cesar. They promised better pay. After that, the workers began picking the crops again. Cesar Chavez worked for the rest of his life to improve farm workers' lives. Would you agree that he is a hero? Make connections. How do Cesar Chavez's actions make him a hero? How have you ever tried to help others?
All right, that takes us to the end of our stories. We're going to talk about our comprehension strategy and skill. So for our comprehension strategy, we're going to talk about summarizing. And when we summarize a passage, we're telling just the important parts. So we're telling just the main things that happen that are important. We're not saying every single word that was in a passage or a story that we read. Now for sequence, when we're talking about sequence, we're talking about putting things in time order. So what happened first, what happened next, what happened after that, what happened last.
Summarize. Summarizing is using your own words to tell the most important events in a selection. This can help you remember new ideas in a selection. Find text evidence. After reading page 365 of Cesar Chavez, I can summarize what happens in the section Changing Lives. Changing Lives. Cesar knew the migrant workers were not treated fairly, so he decided to take action. He told the migrant workers he had a plan. It was time for grapes to be harvested or picked. Cesar told the workers to stop working. This was called a strike. The grapes began to rot. With no grapes to sell, the landowners lost money. Finally, the owners talked to Cesar. They promised better pay. After that, the workers began picking the crops again. I read that Cesar talked to other farm workers and they had a strike. When the owners promised better pay, the strike ended. Sequence. The sequence tells the order of ideas in a selection. We can use the words first, next, then, and last to tell the order of what happens. Find text evidence. As I read Cesar Chavez, I think about how the ideas and information are organized in the text. They tell the sequence of events in Cesar's life. Graphic organizer. First, Cesar Chavez was born on a farm in Arizona. Biography. Cesar Chavez is a biography. A biography is the true story of a real person's life. It is written by another person. Find text evidence. I can tell that Cesar Chavez is a biography because it tells about the life of Cesar Chavez. Another clue is that it has a timeline of his life. Text features. Bold print shows words that are important to understanding the topic. A timeline shows dates of important events in the order in which they happened. Synonyms. Synonyms are words that have almost the same meaning. Mad and angry are synonyms. A synonym can be a clue to the meaning of another word. Find text evidence. On page 363 of Cesar Chavez, I read the word caring. In the last sentence of the same paragraph, I read the word kind. Caring and kind are synonyms. His mother and grandmother taught him about caring. Many people came to Cesar's door, asking for food, and his kind family always shared.
So as a reminder, synonyms are words that have the same or almost the same meaning as each other. We've talked about these in the past. If you need some additional clues, you can take a look at the Your Turn practice at the bottom of this page, where they're finding synonyms for the words harvested on page 365 and the word challenging on page 364. That's it for our notes for this week. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have an amazing day. Take care. Bye-bye.